Well, it's time. It is time. So, this is the randomizer for Wednesday, January 26, 2022. And tonight we have an interesting topic, randomly selected by the machinery. And that topic is geotechnology. And geotechnology is actually a very ancient technology. It's one of the oldest technologies, as a matter of fact. And if you think about it, we have whole periods of time: Stone Age, the Neolithic, the Paleolithic, the Eolithic, and they're all named for the fact that humanity primarily worked stone. And geotechnology, at the heart of it, is all about working the material of the earth itself, geo. And so when we talk about geotechnology, of course, we have a completely different picture of it today. And let me briefly do a couple of plugs here. I'm going to encourage people to go to the site and become a member of the Universe Science Center or Schultz Laboratories, and to subscribe, see all of our podcasts, our videos, our live chats, our publications and books, and take advantage of this opportunity to walk through the galleries and experience some of the things in our virtual space there. It's going to be a lot of fun, and it's growing, and everybody who joins is supporting the growth and development of that virtual educational facility. That being said, these videos and others will also be posted in our library on site, and also a pedestrian page that you can go to pretty easily. So if you're a member, you'll be able to see all of this stuff very easily. So back to geotechnology, and our lines are open for anyone who wishes to join us and talk about the subject and ask questions or make suggestions. So geotechnology, once again, it's all about working the earth. And if you think about it, we started out with stone, sticks, stone, and dirt. And you can see that even starting from very humble beginnings, we've reached advanced technologies. And it's interesting to say that all of our metals come from geotechnology, pretty much, the mining industry. And mining is probably the world's foremost geotechnology right now. The technology has long been used for housing and shielding, shelter from the elements. During the last ice age, mankind spent much of his time tunneling underground, and literally thousands and thousands of miles of tunnels have been discovered all under northern Europe, Turkey, and Pakistan. And they lead all over the place because people couldn't risk going out and freezing to death during the last ice age. And we see the results of people living underground and we're learning to work the stone for thousands of years, manual labor, and working out the methods for cutting and shaping stone. And then we also see the amazing monolithic and megalithic structures all over the planet. Pyramids, tombs, tunnels, structures, palaces, obelisks. All of this was cut from stone. So it really is the bones of the earth, and it has been mined and hauled around and shaped by mankind. And in many cases, we'll find that the only enduring signs of past civilizations have come from the stone itself. Our earliest language appears to be in the form of petroglyphs, markings on stones. And so there's another whole story behind that, another whole subject that I won't even get on tonight. But right now, I would say that almost all of our foundation technology depends very heavily on geotechnology. So we use it for mining all of the ores for our metals. And we use it also in a new way right now. Some companies have taken to sealing used underground salt mines because of the huge volume of space underground that they represent. And what they will do is they will go underground, they will case out the salt mine, they will seal all the openings, and then run 2 or 3 controlled tunnels to an airlock on the surface. And the reason for this is they will take alternative energy, such as wind power or hydroelectric power, and they will use it to compress the air and store it in these huge underground vaults as a sort of a battery. And then, when energy is needed, they can release the air pressure through turbines or essentially large fan blades and run generators. So, this is an interesting turn on things that our initial urges to move underground for safety, and then later, because of the materials we discovered there, has now actually taken another step and turned into an energy storage technology. I know that in northern states in the United States, many that had salt mines in areas not far from Chicago or in Minnesota, there are actually habitats, schools, businesses, malls, everything underground in old salt mines. And this is actually, in a sense, a return to our earliest roots. So when we take the structures of the earth, which are stable, they're good shielding, they're temperature stable, you don't suffer from the elements such as rain or snow, then this is actually a very interesting technology, and it's essentially lower cost in many ways than the sort of construction and insurance issues you'd face on the ground. Now, the one major disadvantage to being underground is the circulation of air. So in geotechnology, and this is an interesting thing, one of the things they will do is they will create an air reserve or plenum in empty cavern spaces and then use it to circulate heat, moisture, and air in and out of colony spaces such as the hotels, businesses, and malls, and even homes that they have there. It isn't a hugely common practice yet. But I know that some time that we spent in Montreal, we found that they had essentially an entire underground city there. And that was because of the extremely harsh winters as well. So geotechnology brings us all of our basic metals, all of our iron, all of our nickel and tungsten, our copper. It has all been mined because of geotechnology, and it is the source of those primary materials for our industry. I want to get some people on if anybody has any questions. We have any participants who feel like stepping up to the plate. I encourage them to do so. Join us and ask a few questions or give me a few ideas. Lately, the developments in geotechnology have included not just power reserve, but actually military bases and underground transport systems. I know many people are familiar with Elon Musk's boring company, where he has made very large advances in creating underground transportation systems. And I know there was a lot of criticism about this, but I have to say that if you were to place transportation systems underground in an evacuated or low air pressure system, you could travel at speeds comparable to or even exceeding those of airliners for an extremely low cost. Now, consider what that would mean for transportation systems around the world. Every time we have inclement weather, ice storms, volcanic eruptions, and dust in the air, the dust from volcanic eruptions can scour jet engines and damage them very easily, cause failures. One of the advantages of traveling on the ground is if the engine stops, well, you're on the ground, and that doesn't work too well if you're in the sky. But if you consider that you could place a cargo or personnel carrier in a nearly evacuated tube and it could travel 500 or 600 miles per hour, and for extremely reasonable costs in energy, then you see that it could easily compete with the type of things that we have to deal with in the airline industry. Travel underground can be very simple. And here's an interesting fact. When you're using tunnel boring machines, a lot of people aren't aware of exactly how you have to navigate underground. Obviously, if you're on the surface of the earth, you can use GPS, satellite, pretty traditional methods of radio-generated tracking and location, and it's very easy to get around there. But when you're boring a tunnel underground 5, 10, 11 miles, how do you know it's going to meet properly at the other end? And the fact is, they will often take gyroscopic readings, laser readings, and other things and match them up. And in some cases, you can actually transmit a location signal underground using geosondes, which are devices which send almost like a vibration code through the ground, and also through some long wave radio that will penetrate to a fair distance. So there are some navigation challenges, but they've been pretty much met. I know when they dug the channel under the English channel, I should say the tunnel, which they call the chunnel, when they dug the tunnel from France to the United Kingdom, to England, they had some real issues, and they were able to make those tunnels match up extremely closely. One of the things that people aren't aware of is that the cost of getting a tunnel boring machine into the ground and using it in a project can be such that in the end, getting it out again is a problem. You see, they normally transport the pieces of the tunnel digging machines to a location, and they assemble them on site. And the machines bore the tunnel, and most of them these days are about 40 feet in diameter. Imagine that. It's like a huge living drill bit, 40 feet in diameter, digging through the underground and sealing the rock behind it. Um, in many cases, when they're done with that technology, they will dig a side tunnel and park the machine there for good. It might seem like a waste, but when you consider the cost of the machine versus the cost of the overall project, a lot of times it actually makes sense to do that. So I see we have another live listener online. Welcome to the show. And if you have any chance to ask any questions or contribute something, please do. We're talking about hello. We're talking about geotechnology, working the stone under our feet, and how it leads to advances in mining, transportation, and energy storage. And one of the things that really surprised me when I was a kid, I used to love the study of words and their meanings. And I was fascinated for some reason by the island of Cyprus and the fact that that was where they found copper, and realized that the ancient word for copper was cupros. And if you go back to the Latin script, we see kypros, Ky, it actually is the representative of copper, cupros. So the island of Cyprus was literally named for copper, which was mined there for thousands of years. And their typical tools of mining were reindeer antler or bone or horn to chip it out of the rock. That is a fascinating story. The beginning of the word, the name of the island, and the fact that, unknown to many, the island of Cyprus was the first site of industrial pollution from mining copper. And so I think that's unknown to them, was a forebear of things to come. I think today one of the biggest problems we have in the mining industry, particularly when you look at electric vehicles for one thing, samarium magnets, supermagnets for another. When you start looking at some of the exotic materials we have to mine and the amount of damage it does to the environment, people are really rethinking how they're going to be doing that. I think that a lot of geotechnology is going to remain probably for the next couple of centuries pretty solidly, but I also see that we're changing the way we do things to the point where instead of using explosives, we might be using nano machines. Now, here's another interesting development just recently. In the last few years, they've been starting to use electrical erosion for mining rather than explosives. They literally insert electrodes and run lightning discharges through the rock and explode it out of the rock face. So instead of drilling the normal method you would picture, or grinding the rock face down with large bits of carbide, they use electrical arcs to erode into the tunnels now. Now, obviously, for some ventures, this would not work. You obviously don't want to do that in a coal mine where you could actually ignite the underground. We have a few instances. One is located in Russia, the Gates to Hell, which was actually a place where they unintentionally ignited the underground. They were trying to burn off explosive methane, and what they didn't realize was that they were setting fire that would not go out for decades. Um, right now, they actually are on a move to put out the longest burning underground fire, which has done far more damage than the methane ever would have by estimates. So, geotechnology, one of our oldest and best understood technologies, and strangely, one that has left a lot of mysteries behind. I spoke briefly about the monoliths, the large stone structures created by people. You know, when you think about it, we had a handful of people living underground during the ice ages, learning how to chip and cut at the stone. And I know a lot of people thought, well, What sort of tools did they have? If you're mining stone, you always have one tool hard enough to cut the stone, and that is the stone. Stone will cut stone. But this raises an interesting point. For many years, one of the standards of wealth has come from the earth, and that is gemstones. Now, why were they so valuable? Because they were pretty and shiny and different colors? Not in the least. Primitive man was, if nothing else, pragmatic. The value of gemstones is this: a deposit of ruby or of diamond or of any fairly decently hard stone is a deposit of natural stoneworking material. The most commonly used material for working the stone was harder stone, and abrasive was one of those tools. People have wondered for years how the cylindrical holes or straight lines were cut in the slabs and blocks of stone that were worked by primitive man. They weren't so primitive, and they certainly weren't stupid. They would make a pitch of animal fat, sand, or abrasive, and they would apply it to the tip of a wooden tool or a brass tool, and they would rotate it. They had amazing mechanical jigs with stone wheels that they used, just like the grist wheel that had enough inertia to keep moving, and they would have guys do nothing but run the belt to spin that stone up, and that's how they made a drill. And these primitive drills, in one form or another, still exist in some of the archaeological sites. Now, oddly, they're often dismissed as being, a ceremonial object or a religious object, when actually they had very practical meanings and uses that archaeologists, unfortunately not being familiar with those technologies in many cases, don't recognize. When you really come down to it, you had to be clever to survive an ice age and not freeze to death and still be able to get your food, water, and air. Many amazing geotechnologies have been discovered in looking at the ancient world, and some of them are tiny pocket cities that appear in the top of a cliff or a hillside where they were able to emerge from the underground and get ventilation and safely grow food without predators dropping in on them. It's just amazing when you think about it, how much we've learned over the thousands of years, and even more amazing how much of it we have forgotten. So we're going back to geotechnology in many ways. Many played out mines now serve as new springboards because better technologies can examine seams of metals or minerals that were missed behind by the previous occupants or people who worked those mines. We also see, as I was mentioning, the ability to store compressed air underground in large caverns and use it to run fan-driven generators. One of the other things that I find most interesting, in many cases, people would use played-out mines to throw trash, and these were called middens. Middens are places where you dig a hole, throw your trash, and leave it. As it happens, when we go back through many of these old mounds, tunnels, and passageways that were carved underground, we will find troves of literally treasure from the archaeologist's standpoint. Our history is often, unfortunately, written in trash, and the ability to store it in a low oxygen, temperature stable environment where it is unlikely for predators or scavengers to get into it, that's proven to be a really valuable find for a lot of people researching our past. So geotechnology, it is an amazing thing. It's been around for literally thousands of years. And I think that it would be fair to say that other than Zymergy, the making of beer, geotechnology is probably one of our real go-to technologies. It's been around for tens of thousands of years. Well, at this point, unless we have any questions or additions or comments, I'm going to plug our site once again. I encourage people to become constant members of Schultz Laboratories and the Universe Science Center. We're going to be adding more podcasts, more published documents, papers, exhibits, and interactive content to our virtual world on a daily basis. We encourage you to go to our page, sign up for a membership, $15 a month, and you have full access to everything. And we're going to have some amazing things to show you very soon. So you can see the website at the top of my page here, schultzlaboratories.com. And if you go to that site, you can reach everything right there. Or if you go to universesciencecenter.com, you'll find all the links there. So please join us, subscribe, support our growth, and help us to become a better and more useful educational facility. Now, every Monday at 9 p.m., we hold a 1-hour class with a discussion time afterwards. We just finished our last 6 lessons for the Fermi paradox. Starting on the 31st, Monday, we are going to start our new class called Meta World. In this particular class, we're going to examine how humanity has come from rocks, sticks, and dirt and has advanced to space travel and nanotechnology. This is a look at not only what we have done, but the psychology behind it, the changes of things going on in our world, the ethics behind it, and our understanding of the limits of growth. So Meta World is our new class, 6 installments starting on the 31st of January. We hope that you'll sign up for it. We're going from sticks to nanotechnology, and it'll be a lot of fun. Well, thank you to everybody who's participated and who watches these. Thank you for our subscribers and supporters, and I hope everybody has a wonderful evening. We're going to do this again tomorrow at 6 p.m. We'll pick another random subject. We'll post it on Facebook Live and online, and people will be able to decide if they want to join in that one. And even if you don't show up, I have a lot of fun ranting about some interesting subject, and that's something that I can do for, well, days uninterrupted. So thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful evening, and we appreciate you showing up. This is Charles Schultz with Schultz Laboratories and the Universe Science Center, encouraging you to join us, become a supporter, and listen to our podcasts and participate in our live discussions. Thank you for everything, everybody. Have a wonderful night. Any questions? This is your last chance to ask them. Thank you very much. Good night, everyone. And we hope you'll join us for the next one.